Let's call to order the July 19th meeting of the School Exploratory Committee. And we'll have the flag salute. Jerry, as the new person that's in charge, why don't you lead the group in this? Jerry Kiesman.
He's muted.
Okay.
Nope, sorry about that.
Would you
hear me now?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
I, like many of you, do not have a flag in front of me, so I will pretend.
Okay.
Right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
which is
one nation, under God, indivisible,
under
with
God.
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
That was very
okay. We could start with the roll call. Jerry, you can start and introduce yourself, and then
Sure.
we'll go through the members of the committee and any of the public at large that would like to introduce themselves. Feel free to do so. Okay.
All right.
So
thank you,
Jerry,
Earl. Yep, my name is Jerry Kisman. I am the new superintendent business administrator for the district. Super excited to be here, trying to jump on board with all your work and see what's going on there. And I'm here kind of as an observer right now to try to, I'm a sponge. I'm trying to figure out all this stuff. So thanks for having me, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, Sally, did you want to kick off the members with the members of the committee?
Sure. We have a steering committee, and do you want me to introduce them? I think they can introduce themselves.
Yes, they can.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Okay.
Sally Riley, a member of the steering committee.
Alicia Slattery, member of the steering committee.
And Heather. Oh, sorry, Heather. Laura Turgeon, member of the steering committee.
Heather Middaugh, also a member of the steering committee.
Abigail Rooney, member of the steering committee and also a school board member.
Okay, anyone else from the committee?
Yeah, Larry Brown, Exploratory Committee.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else from the committee, or now any of the folks that were kind enough to join in, would they like to introduce themselves or wait to speak when they want to?
I'll just throw out that I'm Robert Qua, and I'm the special ed director for the district, and I am on the exploratory committee.
We've got quite a bit of feedback. Can people be muted if they're not talking?
Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Did you all have a chance to look at them? Is there any change to them? Okay, do we all accept them? Let's vote to accept them. Do we accept the meetings of the last meeting? You did a very nice job with them, Tammy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I
Would
vote to
anybody
approve
like
the minutes.
to?
Laura Turgeon, I vote to approve the minutes.
I second it, Sally Riley.
Okay, all say yes that want to approve it?
Yes.
Yes.
Favor? Okay,
Since this
anyone
is a Zoom-
opposed?
Since this is a Zoom meeting, it should be by roll call, and the name should be announced along with the vote. Larry Brown, abstain. And the date of the minutes of the meeting should be referenced in the motion.
Okay, the date of the meeting is Monday, July 19th, and we can have a roll call vote, starting
The meeting
with Sally. Would you like to start?
Yes, Sally Riley, I approve the minutes of the meeting.
This is Laura Turgeon. I approve the meeting minutes for Monday, June 14th, 2021 via Zoom. Is that good for you, Larry?
That's perfect. It would be
Thank
hard
you.
to approve. It would be hard to approve tonight's minutes.
That's true, Larry. Would you like me to do it again? I can do it again.
Yes.
I was only
please
rehearsing.
say.
No. Zoom is a wonderful platform.
It is. Maybe next time we can meet as a committee in person. That's what I'm hoping.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. From now on, we'll meet in person for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, good idea. Let's complete these though. Sally, did you want to restate it as per
I
the
don't
input?
think he's saying that it needs to be restated
No.
like that. I think at the very beginning is what he was saying was needed to be the date, and then just everybody go, yes, 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 no, no. I think that's what he meant, abstain.
Alicia
Whatnot.
Slattery, yes.
Abigail Rooney, yes.
Heather Middaugh, yes.
And Larry Brown abstain.
And I will abstain because I wasn't part of that.
Okay, did we all go through?
Rob,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
thank you. I think we're all set now. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your help, Tammy. Okay, without next on the agenda is the report from the steering committee. So at this point, I'll turn it over to the steering committee.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a little recap of what we did at our most recent meeting, if that's okay. And I apologize in advance if there's a lot of background noise. I'm at a campground, so if it gets to be too much, I'll try and go inside, but that's where I am right now. I'm on vacation. Gotta love Zoom. Yeah. So anyways, so the steering committee had a meeting on Monday, the 28th, over in the room where the library is. We did an in-person meeting. We kind of did a recap of, again, what we are doing as a steering committee is the gathering information as directed by the town warrant to look into what it would be to make an agreement to send the 6th through 12th grade students to another district. Some of the things that we needed to gather more information on that we reviewed at the meeting were transportation costs, both what our current costs are and what they would be to send out of district. Our special education costs, number of students, types of services, things like that. We also, we were talking about the fact that there were 17 graduates this year, and we were just curious how many. It just seemed like a small class. We were curious how many started as freshmen and kind of dig in deeper to that. And we're also continuing to fill in our comparative analysis chart, showing all the same information by school, all the different answers to their questions. And we also decided to set up meetings with the superintendents of each of the school districts to review and clarify the information given to the committee in the initial written responses. So that's where we're at with that as far as that meeting. And since then, we have had some of the meetings, but I'll have some other people give the information on the follow-up on that.
Okay, I think Heather is going to be next from the steering committee.
Sure. So I can just give a very brief, my section's pretty quick, about the building analysis that was completed most recently. So I think it's important to initially note that the cost per student, which we'll have another member of the steering committee go over all that, but that does not include the updates that need to be made to both the high school and the middle school. So just something to know. Of course, those would be subject to taxpayer responsibility. But the last facility analysis that was shared with us was completed in 2015. So it was about 6 years ago. The work outlined within the analysis has, from my understanding, not yet been completed to the building. And I think it's important to note, of course, that the cost may vary significantly just due to the amount of time that has passed and the general uptick in labor and materials. The analysis determined that there was up to $3,334,300 worth of work that needed to be completed to the high school. This includes work ranging from fixing plumbing that was original to the building, installing ventilation systems, and fixing outdated electrical systems. The analysis also showed that up to $294,000 worth of updates needed to be made to the middle school. So those are my two brief sections, super speedy. So I will pass the baton on.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. All right. I'm going to report on our comparative analysis chart. And what we've done is we're collecting the information as was our task to do. And regardless of any individual feelings about this whole process, our duty was to collect information, and that's what we've been doing. So we've been collecting information in 3 different ways. One way was from the written responses from our questionnaires that were sent out to the various schools. We did receive answers back from Prospect Mountain in Alton, as well as Dover, Farmington, Rochester, and Somersworth. We did not receive anything back from Noble. We're also gathering information from the New Hampshire Department of Education, DOE. They have a website, and I did send out earlier today the comparative chart and also the link to the DOE where you can take a look at the chart and see all the kinds of information that you can get from that site. And then lastly, we've been collecting information by visiting the interested schools. So far, we've visited 2 districts. We visited Prospect Mountain, which is in Alton, which is made up of Alton and Barnstead, and we visited Rochester. We have yet to visit the other schools, but we plan to do that. And at these meetings, we've been meeting with superintendents, assistant superintendents, business managers, as well as school board members. And so they've been very interesting and very informative. Also, one of the things, and you'll hear more about it, but at the end of the visit at Prospect Mountain, we had an invitation for a dinner presentation and a tour to all the members of the Exploration Committee, as well as the school board. So they gave us 2 weeks to choose from that we could go up there for the tour, August 16th through the 20th, or we could do the week of August 23rd to the 27th. So I'm not sure how many people actually got the chart. I know all the members of the steering committee have it. We sent it to, I believe, both the acting and the new superintendent coming in. I hope that you got that because I sent that this afternoon to you, as well as all the members, the committee members. It would be a lot, I think about the public on this call and Zoom call, and I would wish that they had the information in front of them so they can see it.
Hey, Sally.
Yes.
Do you want me to share my screen and I can share the chart?
That would be wonderful, Heather.
You got it.
Okay. Because the information is very informative. Oh, thank you, Heather. See, take somebody who knows about computers. Thank you so much. As you can see, we started off the chart with just naming the superintendents and also the principals. And when you take a look, if you look at the third box down, at the fourth box down, you see the current enrollments. So with the enrollments, you see that there is a variety of how many students in the student body. And you can see that some are close to Milton, but others are like, when you look at Dover, you're talking about 1,500 plus students, as well as Spalding, over 1,100 students. And then you see Prospect Mountain, that is kind of in the middle. Farmington's a little bit closer, and Somersworth is kind of on the same plane as Prospect Mountain. The capacity, we're still trying to figure out if these schools have room to take Milton students. So when you look at Prospect Mountain, you see that they can take up to 800 students, and they presently have around 470. With Spalding, they certainly have room for students. Somersworth, we haven't met with them yet, so we really don't know what it means we have room to grow. And then we're not sure about Dover, but we're thinking Dover has recently built a new high school, so they probably do, but we haven't nailed that number down yet. And we haven't talked to Farmington, so we need to figure that out. With graduation rates, you can see across the chart, I went back 3 years, and 3 years is what we call a data trend. So after you get 3 years of information, you can pretty well see, you know, if it's consistent or if there's some years that are really out of whack. When you take a look at those graduation rates, they're pretty steady when you look at the different schools. There's no graduation rates for 2021, just simply, we all know with the pandemic. I didn't put the information in for 2021 because I felt that could be a little screwed because of what was taking place. The same with the dropout rate. When you look at the dropout rate, you see that's somewhat consistent, but there are factors that can happen through, you know, no one's fault, just circumstances. When you look at Milton, you can see that in 2018, their dropout rate was 3.03, but you see how it dropped down over the next 2 years. So that leads me to believe, when you look at data, that there was something unusual that happened in that year. Teacher ratio, I always kind of chuckle about the teacher ratio because you take an average of everything. And probably Somersworth was probably the most accurate when it says varies but no larger than 25. And when you look at Prospect Mountain, you can see that you're looking at, you know, a little over 12 to 14. And most cases, it depends on what the class is. So in one class, you could maybe have, you know, 10 students. In another class, depending on the class and the popularity of the class too, could skew that a little bit. Accredited, I put in the dates when they were last renewed, if I could find that information, but you can see that Prospect Mountain is renewed. And I'm kind of an odd in this. They did it last year, so that's pretty amazing. Dover was renewed in 2020. Farmington is not accredited, and that was one of the questions that the school board wanted to know when we met with them. Did we only look at schools that were accredited? And no, we didn't. We looked at a variety of schools that were around, close to us. In Rochester, the renewal is coming up, and Somersworth, they are. I wasn't able to find the date as to when their renewal is, but they are accredited. And the next phase, minimum number of Milton students that they would want to enter into an agreement with us. This is the amount of students that they would expect to have from Milton if we were going to enter into an agreement with them. Prospect Mountain would want 100% of the students with a phase-in option. And the phase-in option means exactly that you wouldn't have to send all the students at once. For example, if you have seniors that want to finish out their high school years at Newt, then they wouldn't expect that all those students would be there at one time at Prospect Mountain, that they would be able to graduate from Newt. For Dover, they also would want 100% of the students. Farmington, 75 to 80%. Milton, of course, it doesn't apply. Rochester would want 90%. And we didn't really get any information from Somersworth. So that is something when we visit them that we would have to find out. And then the minimum number of years that they would want to enter into an agreement with, you can see that that varies across the board. SAT scores. SAT scores, we looked at that because we wanted to see what is the academic standing of the school. And right at this point, we don't have any information about that from Milton or from Somersworth. So we're still trying to get that information. One of the things that I think the SAT scores, you're finding out with the pandemic that colleges now, it's an optional kind of thing for SAT scores. So I really like to look at the proficiency rates for English language arts. Those are the proficiency tests that are given every year. And so you can see across the board where those stand. And there are some differences. And the same thing when you look for the math, there are noticeable differences when you look at those across. And I took that back to 2017 to 2019. We didn't look because of COVID the last year, so these are pretty accurate when you look at them. And please, I hope the public can see those because there are differences. Now, this next section, I think, is going to be very interesting to many of us. And this is the high school average cost per pupil. So there's only 2 years of information on the chart. That's all that the DOE had. And when we look across at that, I want you to see what Milton spends to educate their students. This is the average cost in 2019. So in 2019, Milton spent $25,294 to educate one student, right, in the high school. And then when you look in 2020, they spent $22,941. Now, when you look at the other costs, you can see how that lines up. And the thing that you want to keep in mind about that is, what are you getting for that money? So you have to think about what courses are you getting, you know, what services do you have there at any of the schools when you look at the cost.
Hey,
So-
Sally,
Yes.
I think we should also note this so that people know that those figures actually don't even include the transportation cost either.
Correct, correct. And if you look on the chart, it tells you that on the back of it, it tells you that the average cost per pupil is less the food service revenues, which makes sense. It doesn't include, you're right, the transportation expenses, summer school expenses. So you've got costs on top of that, that's not even reflected in these numbers.
Yep, in addition to the updates to the building.
Correct, correct. Yep. And also in addition to special ed costs and sending students out for special programs. The next section, and I'm going to let Rob, the special ed director, he, if you see on the chart right now for the special ed, it's the percentage of students with disability and the special education costs. And that's a very interesting section. And I know that Rob did a lot of work trying to get together because our committee wanted to know exactly how many students actually have speech, have OT, have PT, and other services. And we wanted to know that cost because when you're sending students out, how much is that going to cost you if you send students to another school? In other words, are other districts going to charge you extra for that? So we're trying to get a handle on that cost. So Rob, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts that go along with it. If you're looking at that column of there, that row called special education costs, we pay somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000 total for contracted services, which is speech, OT, school psychologist, teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, teacher of the blind and visually impaired, orientation mobility. There's a lot. About 100 to 150,000 of that is devoted to the high school. Actually, the high school is even less. That's the middle high school. The high school alone is probably more like 75. But if we're looking at comparing what we do to what would happen if we sent kids out, just as a for instance, we may not have 5 students who require PT. So that would mean Alton would be charging per student for that.
Actually, Rob, they wouldn't, because if they have 5 students that are that they're already servicing for speech or OT.
Oh, that counts?
It
all
includes
included.
all children.
Got it.
Children from Alton as well as Barnstead as well as Milton.
Okay,
So if
so
there's
as long as
5
we don't
total.
make them bring in a PT. Okay.
Correct.
Right.
Well,
So in other words, if they already have 5, which or if they already have 5 in the program and we have students that come in, that would be part of the base tuition. They would not charge extra. So it wouldn't be extra. And we already know they have more, than 5 in their speech. They already have more than 5 in their OT and PT. So the students coming in from Milton would not be charged extra. It would be the base tuition.
Okay.
So just to clarify.
Yep, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that. There might be situations where if we had a student who required an orientation mobility specialist, that may or may not be something they already have a
Correct.
representative population of, so that to think about.
Right.
We
Sally,
do have a lot of students who require one-on-one paraprofessional, so that would be an extra cost for quite a few kiddos. But nothing would change as far as we're already paying for out-of-district students, so nothing would change there, as well as transportation.
Well, Rob, the only thing is, and I believe there's another district too that has a program that they wouldn't charge. Like, for example, Prospect Mountain has a life skills program. And so it's a program that where students who have a substantial need to be in a self-contained or for most of the day, then they wouldn't charge for that, that would also be in the base tuition rate. So I don't know how many students that are at the high school level that are sent out for, you know, a life skills type program, but you wouldn't be charged extra in Prospect Mountain.
Right. If they could be kept in house, and that could be the case for a couple of our kids.
Yep.
We're definitely building our capacity. We have a bit of a blind spot after elementary school. That partner program works really, really well for us to keep kids in the district. We don't have a great way of transitioning those kids if they're not ready for middle school at that time. We don't really right now have anywhere for them to go. We had the Damon House, we did working on getting it back for that purpose, or, you know, doing something similar. But right now that could be something. I would say that we have very low caseloads for our high school. So that would be something to consider as well. I think our kids, the ratio of students per case manager is very good. And obviously we're only going to hurt their ratios at any other school. But that aspect of being able to keep some kids in-house in a program with more facilities and more resources could be a savings for sure. Did anybody else have any other questions about the special education part?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, then the question would be, if I'm understanding you correctly, we would pay out-of-district adjudicated IEP costs, and we would be responsible for our own transportation for out-of-district SPED transportation.
That appears to be the case.
And we would be responsible for special education one-to-one paras, generally, according to the terms of any agreement that we reach with District X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, there appear to be differences as you go from school to school, but Alton and Dover both have more or less the same. And then it seems like, and those are probably the most reasonable as far as, you know, what we would be looking at doing compared to what we're doing now. You know, if we had to go to Farmington, for instance, and have to pay an additional surcharge for every single kid who has an IEP, that would look a lot different.
I think something to note too is, since there is no agreement, anything is subject to conversations and negotiations with the school. So since nothing's set into stone, this is just like a general recommendation to go off of. I think anything is up to discussions once we go further.
Right. It would seem, however, that it's more likely that the dog would wag the tail rather than the receiving district signing on to Milton's preferences.
Well, we're already paying quite a bit for students to go out of district for certain services. Is that correct, Mr. Claw?
Yes, that is correct. And I would say there's a small percentage of those students who are sending out of district that could be serviced in-house in another larger district. But those kids do exist. I'd say the lion's share of those students would remain as out-of-district placements no matter where our kids were.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell us how many students in the high school are out of district?
Around 10.
Okay, and if you think of those 10, what's the average cost?
The average cost is probably around 50 grand.
Per student?
Yes, per year.
Okay, so if you had 2 or 3 of those students that could go to a program at a larger school district, then that would definitely be a savings.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And certainly if a school district isn't charging you, like you're doing contracted service, I'm sorry, how much did you say Milton pays out in contracted service for OT, speech, PT.
Just in the high school, it's about $50,000.
Okay. Okay.
Is that again per student or is that for all students?
That's total for the high school.
Right. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to nail those figures down so we could see the savings. Because, you know.
Or
if
the
you-
expense?
Right. So, you know, to contract out all these services, it's very expensive rather than having your own in-house people. And you know that.
Yes, it can be.
Yeah, definitely. So anything else about special ed services from anybody? No? Okay. All right, so we continue to work on trying to nail down the cost of all these services and see, you know, what that works out to be. But when you take a look at what people are paying for the average cost per pupil, I really hope that people take a look at that because there is a huge difference. And then you can see the category on the next page. It's just the ROTC. You know, there are 2 schools that have that, Dover and Rochester. So they have that added benefit. And then for the course levels, because it was interesting when we did the survey and people thought for sure that the cost was going to be the most important thing to the people in the survey. And it wasn't. It was the level of courses that could be offered to students. And so what we did with this section was simply, we looked for the information from the schools with their responses and with their program of studies. So there's probably a lot more information that could be put on here. And we would like to have those programs of study available so the public can see that. Because when you look at it, there are some differences. Probably on the next part, the next category, the number of in-houses AP courses. And there is a difference there. You can see that it ranges anywhere from none to 13. And with Milton, I know I had a conversation with Jan and she indicated that if a student wanted to take an AP course, they would send that student out. They would have to transport that student out. And then the Career and Technology Center, we know there are 3 in the area. There's Dover, there's Rochester, and Somersworth. And Farmington and Alton actually send their kids to the tech center in Kingswood. So all of them have access to a tech center.
Hey, Sally,
Yeah,
when we send our kids out for their AP courses, we pay for transportation, but do we also pay for the AP course itself? We have to pay the extra.
yes, yes.
For, I think where we send them, like Great Bay.
Yes, they have sent them to some school districts, but they have sent them.
But we pay out of house cost for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the next category, and I know this was of particular interest to a lot of people, the governance. How would that work? And Abby, I hope you're still there.
Yes,
No, so.
yes, I am. It started raining, I had to move inside, but
Okay.
it's crazy.
So
But
if you
anyways,
could do that.
yeah, there was a question, there was some concern as to like, is there going to be school board representation? Are we going to get a vote? That sort of thing. And we're pretty much finding out that the school board members don't necessarily they wouldn't have like a vote, like a school board vote. But from what I understand, I don't know about the other schools, but I know Prospect Mountain had mentioned that they could serve on their committees and would have a vote on the committees. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay.
And they could participate in non-public discussions as well.
Right.
Right.
There would be full access and participation. They just wouldn't necessarily have a vote
Yes.
unless they were on a committee that actually could vote on the committees. Yeah.
Yes.
So if I could intervene, so if you went to sending your kids out, you would have no vote on the school board?
Right. In any of the districts, you don't have a vote on the school board. What you would have is, and I think there was one other, if you went to Farmington, you'd be a voting member on an advisory board. And I don't know if that, because we haven't been to Farmington yet, but in Alton, you get a vote on the standing committees. And their standing committees is finance and budget, policy and personnel, building and grounds. And then when you go to the board level, there's two non-voting seats with a right to participate in all discussions, including non-public.
And that's on their joint board, and their joint board consists of Alton and Barnstead.
And this is consistent with the approach that schools, when schools have school choice, they don't necessarily have a vote. Like for Barrington for example, they send out to like Dover, Co-Brown. They don't have a voting position on those school boards either. And they haven't had any concerns with that particular approach because they still have a voice.
Yep. So help me understand. So even though you don't have a vote, you can still choose to, if you send them out to a district and the district says it's 20% more next year, even though you don't get a vote, you can move your kids, right? Are these agreements isolated so that if you say they're going to school A, they have to be there?
Well,
You get school choice.
okay, so one of the interesting things about negotiations, you can say that over the agreement of sending sending students out to another school, you could say that the increase would be no more than 2% or 3% or 4%. Like I would think, our role isn't to negotiate, but I would think that in that situation, if you were looking at a certain school, that you would put in the agreement that, the first 1 to 5 years, it doesn't go up anymore from year to year, 2%. So that can be written into the agreement.
So what happens if it does?
May I join that conversation?
Then
Yeah.
they break a contract.
Yeah.
If you look at the Barrington and Dover covenant and agreement, you will find that Dover becomes the school of record with governance, with curriculum, with report cards, and it prepares and maintains all necessary records. Barrington has equality of treatment under all federal state statutes, and it has to adhere to the Dover School Policy Handbook rules, follow and agree to everything in good faith. The Dover and Barrington agreement has a 1.8% rider that accumulates year by year. But there is no vote on that school board for the sending school district. And that is, I would think, the standard thing. Negotiation is always possible, but again, you're dealing with a subset of a larger organization. Thank you.
Well, I think there are some other schools that are smaller. And I think that, as you said, subject to negotiation, which is important. I also think that you do have a voice in these schools. And I know when Barrington came to speak to this committee, they didn't voice, and correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't have any issue with how they were treated in Dover and so on. I didn't hear any. I don't know if anybody else did.
I didn't either. They pretty much praised it, said they hadn't had any issues. They've been doing it for years now. They didn't have issues putting the kids in.
And one of the biggest things too, they talked about how they needed repairs at their school and how they were happy that they were sending their kids out, because it certainly did cost the taxpayers a lot less money. And they felt that they got more education for their students and more opportunities for their students than if they stayed in district. And just my personal opinion is that I think we need to look at that. We need to look at, will the students of Milton be better off by going to another school district after we look at all the information that we've gathered and see where is going to be the best place? And I think the voters of Milton need to decide that, you know, and if the voters say, hey, we don't care how much money we spend, we're going to keep the students here, or do we say, you know, I think they're going to be better off and they'll get a better education with more opportunities at another school. And however that vote comes out from the voters, I'm good with that.
And I understand that, you know, from going back very far in this, from the beginning, I know that sports was a huge thing for the town of Milton. Walking along and seeing the pristine sports fields and the way and the abilities that our children could have for playing different sports, like track, like baseball and softball and basketball and lacrosse and football and everything else that some of these schools offer that we just can't because of our size, is huge. I think that, you know, it all plays a big part in, we need to better understand what our children are missing, and are they really missing it, or is it something that we can replace? And with 130 students, I think it's very difficult to say, when you've got, you know, a freshman coming up that loves to run, I'm sorry, you have no choice, but you're never going to run track because we can't do it. Or an 8th grader that has to play on a varsity basketball team because the seniors can't play because we don't have enough students. We have to look at that, all of it.
How many people on the committee have kids in the district?
I do. I have one that's going to be going into kindergarten.
And mine's already graduated.
So 2?
I have 2.
And Sally has grandchildren.
I have a grandchild.
I have a daughter in the school.
I have one going into 4th grade and one starting kindergarten. I have one that just graduated, but he did not graduate Milton. He went somewhere else.
So the distance that you guys have on here and the transportation, I see that you have 15 miles or 22 minutes. That does not include when you go to bus stops here to get the kids. Is that correct?
No, that's your start time leaving the Milton School District to drive to those schools. The Milton High School to those schools.
Okay, so it's not including, we have to go get all these kids from these different bus stops and then go to these places. Okay, thank you.
Well, no, those times stay the same as they have. I mean,
well, you have a kid that's getting up at 6 o'clock to get the bus, just for instance. But you have different bus stops, and then they have to drive from Milton to wherever they're going. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, that depends. Like, if we send our kids out of district, I'm sure we're going to have to make some different decisions, the school board, you know, about start times, different start time possibly for the elementary. All these children would ride together then. There would not be 2 separate bus runs, you know, throughout the day. That's just doesn't make sense money-wise, budget-wise, and it doesn't make sense time-wise.
So you're saying to have people need to bring their own kids to these places, or have a ride share? Or
that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that times, perhaps. So I went to a school where we bused out to a high school, right? So we all rode the same bus. We didn't have two separate routes for elementary, and then middle high school had different times and pickups. And so how it worked was we all rode, you know, our bus route. We came to school, and then the high schoolers got on their buses to go to the high school from the high school.
So you're saying, I guess now I'm confused. You're saying the people are gonna go to the bus.
They're
is
gonna
gonna
ride the
stop
bus
at-
to Newt High School, and then
Okay.
Newt High School will
Okay,
send
but-
buses.
Okay, so that's not including the bus routes then. So yes, they're
No.
getting the bus routes to Newt. So it's
Yes.
not including the bus route. Okay. So
And
I
likely
am
times
correct.
would change.
How do we send
I'm
students
correct
now?
then. Okay, thank you. I
Tammy, how do
appreciate
we
that.
send students to different schools now? Because we've got several
I
kids
just
that are
asked a
going.
question. I'm all set. Thank you.
So when we think about the buses, you know, that is something else that we're gathering the information on. But also I know that at a couple of their schools, they're looking to change bus times to a later bus time.
And when I did a little research on this and the number of kids, and honestly, I think there's always gonna be where most of the seniors probably are not gonna ride a bus. They're gonna drive themselves. They might even take a couple juniors or a sophomore or whatever with them. So you're gonna have X amount of students that need to be transported. So if it's middle and high school, most likely to no more than 3 buses that would be going. Now, if we had to adjust all times where then elementary, middle, and high school is all riding to Newt together, with the amount of kids that could fit on a bus, we could possibly still be at four bus route, or adding just one more bus to
So
that route.
can I ask a quick one? What happens to kids that are doing sports in
And then, so the sport,
Well, Alicia, I think you've,
well, hold on, but surprisingly not an enormous amount, because, did you lose me?
I'm
Can you
just
hear me?
wondering, yeah, we can hear you. I'm just wondering if you push a 9th grader out to, you know, school XYZ and practice is over, do you take them back?
there could be a late bus run.
No, so,
But
and-
They
there
don't
could be-
necessarily take care of them now. I know lots of kids who
yeah.
play sports because I've had to drive kids out to Milton Mills after softball practice. Then they couldn't have done it. There was no bus.
I've
Yeah.
never in my life not had to take my child somewhere, at least to the school, sometimes to other schools, pick them up. You know, I mean, if you're a child and a parent decides that you're gonna allow them to be dedicated to a sport, I think that's just a sacrifice as parents that we make. Now, when I do know all these other schools, they do have their own transportation and their budget where you meet at whatever school, you know, you're at whatever school it is, and they do have transport back and forth between whoever they're playing. But you as the parent, yeah, would be responsible for picking your child up from that school system.
Would that be a hardship for parents who don't have the opportunity or the
I mean, we
all to drive out there?
would pick them up at our own school now. So I actually had a conversation with my father-in-law about this because he's coached Babe Ruth for many, many years in Rochester, just to kind of get an opinion on what, like, how his kids come to practice and what he sees, you know, with that. Because he's actually told me he's had kids that maybe the parents, they don't have a lot or not around a lot or can't afford a lot of things. And he said he's not really ever had an issue with that because there was always another parent that was willing to pick that child up for practices, bring them to games, whatnot. So I think is there a small chance? Yeah, there could be a small chance, but I think there's a higher chance that there are going to be other team members from Milton on a lot of these sports teams who are going to be willing to carpool each other. If that makes sense.
Right now, our football kids are merged. There's a merged team. There's
Yeah.
many small schools, and Rob can point this out. We
As
have
well
been
as
looking
soccer.
at. We've been looking at more and more, and many of the small schools look at merged teams. So that happens where the students need to get rides back to their home, to the home school, because they have to transport there. So right now we have merged
Yeah.
teams, and we were looking at getting more merged teams in order to have enough students to participate in a team, because we haven't had a girls basketball team or girls softball team in 2 years. So we have been looking at where we could merge where we could merge. So as time goes on, the reality is that either as keeping our students here, the athletics would be more and more of a merged team in order to afford the opportunity for our students. Now, another thing that Jerry had asked a very good question, and some of you had talked about it. Again, it's prescriptive as to the agreement that schools go into. But in many instances, as the group has pointed out, the steering committee, Sally pointed out, it's based in a great degree on the cost, their costs. And in most instances, I know that I was dealing with Wakefield 5 years ago, and they went to they went to 2 schools, Wentworth and Rochester. And there really wasn't a lot of increase from year to year. I mean, you could look at the charts, and sometimes drastic things occur. But again, as you folks pointed out, you work that in. So even though it might be based on the cost per student, and it might go up a little bit, you still put something in there so it can't go up above the certain, a certain amount, so that if you agree to go with them for 5 years. And going back to the athletics thing, one of the things I dealt in Wakefield 5 years ago is Wentworth would only get 10% of their kids. So parents would say, my child goes to Rochester, they participate in sports, or my child goes to Wentworth, and they would want if they had two kids at home or 3 kids, they would want them in the same school. So there were students, if they wanted to go to Governor Wentworth, only 5 kids a year, or 10% of the students of Wakefield that are going into 9th grade can go to Wentworth. So parents were really saying it, as Jerry was saying, how do we transport them? They were saying, what do I do? I'll have a 10th grader playing sports in Wentworth. They may be playing the same sport, and I can't send them there. And they had nothing there in Wakefield that guaranteed you, if you had a second or third child, that child would go to Wentworth as well. They drew the names from a hat, and if they drew your name out, you went to Wentworth. So if we run into a situation where our students, like they do in one of the schools that came to the group and spoke, Barrington, where they're going to different schools, then it becomes a real issue, because you have one student participating in high school in one school and the other student in the other. But as long as you have
So
both.
I'm just going to speak realistically here. And Barrington, they do that model. They have 3 different choices, correct? Barrington is also much, much bigger than we are. So if we want to realistically look at this, I do not believe that Milton could do a school choice. We just don't have the funds to do that. Most of these schools as well, you know, we have 130, what is it, 132 students, 135 students. They're probably gonna want us all. You know, you break down and then you're talking about sending maybe 2 buses to this school and 1 bus to that school and another bus to this school. And then the costs just go through the roof again. And it defeats the whole purpose of is this plausible for us to do at a decent rate with a great education for the children. So just realistically speaking, I don't even think that we should be looking at the Barrington model at all. It should be a 1 school choice.
No, I'm sorry, Alicia, I wasn't saying we should. I was saying that when transportation for sports could become an issue is when students are going to more than 1 school.
Yes.
Larry Brown, going back onto the transportation, if I understand the sense of the committee, people who have students going in for one sport or another probably can make do and take care of transportation for that student to after-school practice. There might be multiple new teams involved, and we have to believe that Milton students would be naturally superior and make it onto all of those larger school teams. What I'm not understanding is
and I don't think that's really any different than any other school.
Right, but what I'm not understanding is transportation, whether you're doing a complete run through or a hub and feeder, which is students coming into Newt and then heading out to District X.
I think that has been decided yet.
Right, but that's exactly why I'm asking, because that involves the dominoes of parents and students of different ages, and you're still dealing with a nominal, let's say 130 students going out, and the question is whether or not you can bring all students in and adjust the start and end dates times for the day by having an additional 22 minutes, call it a half an hour, coming and going. A young student is either short coming or short going, and I'm interested very much in how many buses will be needed and the transportation costs and salary and operation and maintenance.
So
And
currently, we already send a bus. We send buses out for VOTEC.
For 3 different schools.
For 3 different schools. The transportation money paid out just for the vocational driver is $72,894. We also pay a vocational ed tuition. That is possible we could get back. So that could end up possibly going back into the transportation costs, you know, that we already sent out anyway. Our high school, so our high school transportation, and this is without the VOTEC stuff as well. We already spend $298,775.61. Middle school transportation, $148,587.47. And then, of course, if you took the VOTEC off that, the high school is $225,881.20.
And that does not count special ed.
Correct.
Well, I don't know about that, because when I went over and I was going to ask, and I'm not really sure why it's not on there. When I went over the middle school and the high school district budgets, it did not have separate special ed transportation cost for the out of district, the number that I was given today in that budget. So either the budget that was given to us is wrong or something's out of whack. Because the number I was given today for special ed transportation cost of out of district, not even in district, is $237,909.92. So we're talking about well over.
I think I figured out that it was
500.
19,000. I think I figured out by looking at the school budget, published budget, that sped transportation for middle school was $19,531.25. High school sped budget for transportation, which was actually middle high school, $493,655.19 is what it was budgeted.
Yeah. The cost out of district spent today, evidently, this is the number I was given today, $237,909.92.
And I
Out
think
of
a really important piece to that is that we send 14 out of 17, or last year, 14 out of 17 of those seniors left that school at some point in the day in order to drive to another school to take a class that we do not offer. And to me as a parent, if I were to take 10 more minutes in the morning or 10 more minutes at night, that is much more beneficial to me than taking my child out of school during the day for a elongated period in order to travel to get what I feel as though they should already have in that place. So just something from a parent's perspective,
Not to mention
another the money.
Yeah, another parent perspective, do your homework on the bus ride home. You know, that's what I did. And I did this, I went to high school on a bus and it was about a 25-minute ride each way. And I did my homework on the bus on the way home.
Those kids that have motion sickness and that get sick on a bus because of a bus.
Well,
I'm
as a
just
parent,
saying,
if my child had
I am
motion
a
sickness, I'd
parent
be
of
taking
kids.
to a doctor, getting something for them to take. I'm just saying, we can find a million different reasons, but really, we're just looking at what makes sense, what benefits the kids, what do the numbers look like? Is it plausible?
Can I
And we
ask one question?
I'm sorry, and we look to see, are we getting the value for our kids for the money that is being spent? Because and our job as the steering committee is to take all this information, actually find out what is the cost for the special ed, what can we save by going to school X or school Y or school Z, and what is the best path for our students. So that's what we're going to be working on. And we have this great invitation from Prospect Mountain to go up and see their school, to talk with their superintendent, principal, talk with their school board members, and see what it's like in another school. We also have an invitation from Rochester to go down and see their boat tech, which is new. So I think we have an obligation to, first of all, the students, and second of all, to the voters of this town, to make sure that we're doing right by our students and doing right by the taxpayers. So that's our mission of collecting the data and presenting it and then going from there.
So can I interrupt for a second? I know I'm an eavesdropper coming in there, but first, Heather, can you email me that analysis that you have on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and second one, are any students going on these visits or is it just adults?
Prospect Mountain when they put out the invitation for us to come, as well as the school board, said they'd love for us to grab a handful of students to bring, and that they would bring, you know, a few of their students.
Yeah.
So if we could get some seniors, you know, particularly ones that might be interested in, or even juniors or sophomores, or maybe 2 from each class, you know, particularly ones that may be really interested in VOTEC and AP courses and whatnot, to come visit the school. Rochester, I'm not sure, did we ask them that?
Yes, they did say to us when we were there that they would welcome us for a visit.
And we would absolutely ask the rest of the schools as
Yeah.
well when we visit them.
I don't want to beleaguer this point. I'm sorry I'm new, but I just have one quick right up front question. What is the premise for searching to send kids out versus making Newt the school that other people would want to send their kids to?
We asked, nobody wanted to.
Right, but I mean, I understand that. I saw the letters, but I mean,
Our premise.
why not make Newt the place where other people want to come or bring their kids?
Well,
Because it's just simply not big enough. So like, if you think of it on a grand scale of things, the amount of money we just even have to put in just to get it, you know, even up to date the way it is now. And then you're talking about having to add on to that to get to a big enough scale to even afford to do the things that some of these larger schools can offer. We just simply, we can't offer it. Now, the reason that the townspeople ended up coming in and putting this Warren article on was because of the taxes. They just gotten so high that, you know, people got fed up, and this was the result of it.
Okay.
And I don't think any of the other times that this has been researched, that it's really been researched to the scale that we have done at this point as well.
Well, and
So,
also, you know, all the other times that it was researched too.
and the
it wasn't-
townspeople never seen it.
Yeah, the townspeople never had an opportunity to vote on it, which was unfortunate, right? Like a decision was made for the town by, you know, 4 or 5 people, which I think is a huge piece to this puzzle, right? If the town keeps coming back over and over and over again, 10 plus years, complaining, I don't even think just about the taxes, but just some of, you know, also like the experiences or concerns that they have about a small school where there's you know, no AP courses or lack of opportunities for sports. I think they just wanted a say in it at the end of the day, which is, yeah, was the result of the Warren article.
Okay.
And I think it's just, you know, we're hopeful that we did all this research and we can get it out there and really give the people the opportunity to make a decision and feel like they're being heard. No matter
Thank
what
you
way it
for-
goes.
Right. Thank you for all that. I don't have a position. I don't know enough, but I do have questions, so I appreciate the answers. Thanks.
Another question, maybe Earl or even you, Jerry, because we have some missing data on Milton that nobody seems to want to give us the answers to. If you guys could get that for us, would be great.
What is it?
We need what do we need, Sally? We need the SAT scores.
right. We need the
We
SAT
need the
scores.
extracurricular activities.
And I'm
that
sure,
Milton-
right, and I'm sure that Milton can get that information to us. So, yeah, we just want to make sure that we present all the data, and we really would encourage people to make sure that they can make that tour up to Prospect Mountain, as well as going to other schools that we're going to look at, because I think you asked the question about why not making Milton the school that people want to come to, that kids and parents want their kids to go to. I think when you see the resources in these other schools compared to what we'd have to do at Newt is insurmountable.
Can somebody get me those data points that you need?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. we can get them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sally. Side.
Yeah.
Did you get my transportation stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what Alicia was alluding to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
A brief historical sideline on Milton and the becoming a magnet school. The history of Newt is golden handcuffs, in that it was a gift by a local industrialist after whom it is named. When first in existence, it had a Harvard graduates on its staff and a state-of-the-art chemistry lab. Times change. When we were considering joining up to Somersworth, there were graduates of Newt, and if the phrase geographic tribalism fits, that explains some of the passion for Newt. The realities of transportation: it used to be a day trip to get to market in Dover. Now you've barely done half of your first cup of coffee in a car down to Portsmouth and beyond. So the realities of easy transportation and centralization, of which I'm a product, are very strong. And the idea that waving the old flag one more time because it was so glorious in its past wears thin for students like myself who would have loved to play lacrosse, but we're at a small school. So, thank you.
Now, Sally, did you want me to touch on any of the extracurriculars or sports for these different schools?
Sure, definitely, because there is a difference.
Yeah. So start with Prospect Mountain. They annually offer 15 to 20 activities outside of athletics. Process for personalizing or starting clubs according to student interest. Faculty interested in expanding offerings. Need to gauge interest among Milton board and families and students, meaning if we went to their school and there was an uptick in interest in a particular club or group, they would have no problem forming that. They also celebrate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9 different traditions at their school, and offer soccer, volleyball, cross country, golf, bass fishing, basketball, alpine skiing, indoor track, indoor spirit, swimming, track and field, baseball, softball, tennis, equestrian, and unified soccer, volleyball, basketball, track and field. They previously offered ice hockey, wrestling, lacrosse, and gymnastics, and the board would expect to add athletic programs depending on student interest. For Dover, they have 35 clubs in their school. 5, 6, 7. They have 10 traditions that they celebrate. They offer cross country, cheer, volleyball, football, hockey, golf, soccer, indoor track, ice hockey, swimming and diving, alpine ski, gymnastics, bowling, and basketball, outdoor track, lacrosse, softball, baseball, volleyball, tennis, unified soccer, basketball, and volleyball. For Farmington, they offer 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. They offer about 13 clubs between middle and high school, celebrate about 10 different traditions. They offer football, volleyball, golf, soccer, basketball, spirit, baseball, softball, volleyball, and unified basketball. For Rochester, oh man, lots and lots of clubs. Looking about like at least 30 here, 20 to 30, and then celebrate approximately 15 or so traditions. They offer for basketball or bass fishing, cross country, football, golf, soccer, spirit, volleyball, basketball, bowling, gymnastics, ice hockey, indoor track, alpine skiing, spirit, swimming, wrestling, baseball, lacrosse, outdoor track, softball, tennis, unified soccer, basketball, and volleyball. Somersworth Middle School. I have about 12 different clubs. They offer boys, they never listed any traditions, so I don't have that info for that school, but they do offer soccer, football, volleyball, spirit, golf, basketball, ice hockey, indoor track, gymnastics, track and field, softball, and baseball. They don't offer any unified sports.
So you can see there's lots of opportunities, because I know one of the things that people were talking about, would our kids be able to play a sport? Would they be able to be in a club or whatever? There's so many different possibilities for kids who have many different talents. And I like the fact that if there's an interest, they'll start a club or they'll start a sport. So that's the way it is at most of the schools. So also, I just want to say that, in volunteering for this committee, I felt a strong pull or duty that we need to service all the students. We need to take all the students' needs into consideration. So from the student who is a special ed student, who maybe have autism, to the top, academic student, I think we need to look at all our options to make sure that we are servicing the kids. And so I look forward to continuing to gather the information and present it. And I think everybody on this committee wants the best, not just the committee, but our town. Even though we may differ in how we approach that, I really feel that people have positive intentions, and we're going to do the best by the kids of Milton. So thank you for letting me say that.
Excellent. We had some people that are either on the phone or rather than wait for them to ask something, why don't we embed them in there now? And if there's some questions from some of the folks that are not on the committee, do they have them now? Is there any of the folks? There's about 6, 8 folks that are either plugged in or on the phone. Do they want to ask the steering committee? Do they have anything for the steering committee?
You want to just open it for public discussion?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jen Duprat. I'm a resident of Milton, and I'm also, I have 3 children who are high school age. However, they don't attend Milton schools. I've been a school teacher, a high school social studies teacher at St. Thomas Aquinas High School down in Dover for 25 years. And that's where my kids go. But as a resident, I am certainly, I think, Sally, what you said really resonated with me in terms of looking at what's in the best interest of all of the students in town. So my question has to do with just making sure that this data, and I realize that it'll be without context necessarily, but I really feel like it's important for the data that was presented to us today be presented to the community at large. I think that it's really, really important for people to see. I have some really serious concerns about some of the data that I'm seeing in terms of proficiency. I won't say anything else except for that I have some serious concerns. And so my question is, will this, other than it being kind of emailed to individuals, will there be a way for all of this information to be disseminated to the community as a group? Because I think it's really important that that happens. Thanks.
And I think that's a huge topic of discussion that we've had, because it has been, I mean, we've thrown so many ideas around on that. I think that's the most important thing, right? Is I came into this without really, I don't think, a big opinion, but once I started to see the data, I got my own personal thoughts. And I think it's important for people to have this. I know I'm a member of like a lot of the Milton social Facebook communities that easily I can share the data on there, but we're finding difficulty getting it to the people who might not have social media or like the parents. We looked into flyers, trying to get flyers out to the community. That ended up being over $1,000, which this particular group that was put together after the warrant article was not given a budget. So that's been a challenge, but I think we are open to any thoughts and ideas on how to get this information to the community. I will paint a billboard because I think it's just really important for people to have this, to make it educated decision, no matter what way it is, what way it goes. I just want people to have it. So I think we're open to thoughts, ideas, help, anything.
Your neighbor, shove it in the mailbox, what, like, who knows? Like,
Because we had talked about putting them, at Cumberland Farms, putting them in, various places around town just to get the word out. We had talked about, a mailing, but I think it was closer to $2,000 to send them out, because we were trying to figure out, the mailing that we get every year when it comes time to vote with all the different articles. So we were thinking of going that route, but we don't, as we said, we don't have a budget. So we're just trying to figure that out. And we would be thrilled to have anybody come forward and say, hey, this is how we could do it. So we're open to any suggestions and help.
I mean, obviously, one suggestion I would make is to make it available at both the Milton Mills and the Newt Public Library. You probably thought of that already. Maybe something that could be sent out or disseminated at like the summer camp that's being held at the town. Maybe, something that's just, kind of off the top of my head. I think the absence of information is your biggest obstacle, because I feel like once people start looking at the numbers, and I know that there's a lot of passion. I mean, Larry spoke about the historical, both my dad and his parents went to Newt. I mean, I certainly have a lot of experience with the town. My grandparents graduated in the early 1900s. I mean, it's not that I don't have some affinity for the school. And Larry, you'd be interested to know that students used to actually ride the train down from Ossipee to go to Newt. Just FYI, just in case you didn't know that piece of history. So, it certainly isn't anything that I have against the school, but I also think that doing what's in the best interest of the students, you sometimes have to take that sort of emotional element out of it and really, make sure and the other thing I wanted to say, because I can imagine that this is a very thankless job, is thank you to all of you. It is very clear from your presentation today that every single one of you put a tremendous amount of time and effort into what you did. And I just want to say, for one, as a educator and as a parent, thank you for doing all of this work, because obviously you didn't get any money for it and you probably have gotten a lot of flack for it. But thank you. Each one of you who spoke did a phenomenal job in presenting the information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for speaking up and your thoughts and opinions and ideas. Very appreciated.
So anybody that is out there and sees this, that has any suggestions of how we can get the information out, those were excellent suggestions. We're open for more. And if anybody has a source of money to mail a flyer out, just let us know.
Oh,
We
yeah,
about
Charlie,
having a sale.
there's a great chance for town and gown cooperation. Hit on Chris Jacobs to use the town's new electronic signboard and say, get your school district report. If you've seen the signboard.
Oh, I
That's a
haven't.
good idea.
Great. Thank you, Larry.
And maybe we could say, get your information and leave quite a few copies maybe at a specific location. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right, and
Well-
the www, whatever it is.
Right. Great. Okay. Fantastic.
Also, we'll keep it open for phone calls and stuff, but the group is, as we had discussed last time, going to present it to the school board on the 28th. Am I correct?
Correct.
So, so we can plan on disseminating, getting the material to Kathy Vigu by Wednesday or Wednesday, so she could put it in the board packet that will be sent to the school board members, so they have it a week beforehand. Also, too, as we're looking at the dissemination of the information, probably one of the things to do is to put it on the school Facebook, and also the members of the steering committee, Sally and Heather. And I know that you folks have been looking at this for a long time. What Jen had brought up, you've been kind of working in a vacuum, and people aren't aware of what exactly the exploratory committee does and so forth. And unless you plug in to these discussions, you're kind of in the dark as to what it is. So I'm thinking if you get it to Les Elder and the various, Laura could probably, all of you could join
Yeah,
in.
we have all those. You're talking about the Facebook pages
the
for
different
Milton.
ones,
Yeah.
So at least people can see in daylight what the different facts are. I think that Jen put it in a succinct way, so that all the different ones that there are. I think there's like 5 of them or so.
If you want to send to me, I can put on the Milton School District one as well. So whatever you
That'd
want to
be-
send, I can put it on there.
That'd be
Okay.
awesome. Are we still able to put it on like the actual Milton school page, not like the Facebook page,
How
but
about the website?
yeah, is that an opportunity?
That probably would be something that Kathy would have to do. I think that the superintendent would have to push
Jerry,
that along to her.
Jerry, would you work
yeah.
on that?
Yeah, if you send me what you need to put on, I'll give it to Kathy and we'll put it on.
And then if
Okay.
whoever
Okay.
wants to send to me, I can put on the Milton School District one as well.
And actually, I sent the whole committee, the exploration committee, later this afternoon. So you should,
The comparative analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. If that's what you want me to put on there, I can do that.
Yep.
Well, that's not the whole of it, though. We have some other pieces to it. So maybe I'll
Okay.
send you some of the other pieces to it. And
All
then
right.
Earl or Jerry, whichever one of you could answer this for me. Which me and Sally were going to print out all the parts to our presentation that we're going to be doing to for the school board. So they would have a copy, each member of the school board would have a copy to follow along
Yep.
as we're presenting it. Sally, do you have a printer and stuff, or
Yeah, I
or
have
could we go use the SAU printer, or?
Yeah,
Alicia,
that would
why
be
don't you, I was gonna
Isn't
say,
it
if
just-
you wanna send it to me, I'll personally pay to bring it down to Staples and have it bound and copied. Because you
I
know what,
have-
I want it done so it's,
I have a
Professional.
printer, but ink's so expensive. I was just
Can
like,
you
oh
not,
man.
can you not just send it to, can you not just send it to Kathy and then Kathy can print it out to them? Because that's what she does. Can you not just send it as an email to Kathy and then she can make
can
the
do that.
copies for the members?
Yeah,
Sure.
it's up to you, Sally, and then
Yeah.
because we have most of the pieces of the presentation and info that
Right.
Sally and I do for that'll need to be printed out.
Yeah.
So can I ask when the presentation will be?
At the school,
28th.
the 28th.
28th? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
at the-
and it's probably under, oh my God, committees. It'll be under committees.
Okay, it has not hit the agenda yet, so I'll make sure it does tomorrow.
Oh, our presentation isn't on the
No,
agenda?
no. Well, it'll just say board committees and then we all
Oh.
give, and then they give their reports.
Okay.
But
Yep.
like I said, if you can just send it to Kathy, she can print it out and put it in all the school board members' packets that she sends out,
Right.
which
Probably-
might save everybody money.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah,
best one.
And-
Jerry, like they're saying, Jerry will ensure that it is on there. She's aware of it, and it'll go under school board reports, and it's
Okay.
on school board committees, and Abby will kick things off as the member of the school board on the exploratory committee and also on the steering committee. So that she'll kick things off, and Jerry will ensure tomorrow as well, concurs that we'll put it on the board agenda, as everyone agreed tonight that it was good to go. That's why we met on the 19th, if you remember. That's why I said the board packets go out on the 21st. Let's get concurrence agreement on the 19th so we can meet the timeline. So it was like planning backwards. Okay, if the board is going to meet on the 28th of July, how do we plan backwards to get the necessary work done? And again, as Jen said, you folks have done a remarkable job. You know, this is the last committee after 51 years that I'll be a part of, and I'm very proud of the work that you folks have done. And I know that we have a great team, and, you know, I love all the folks in the community and the kids, and I know Jerry will do a fantastic job, and all of you will do a fantastic job, and it'll get to daylight, and the taxpayers and the parents and the kids can speak.
Correct.
You know. Yeah.
I have a question, and I'm just recalling back to several meetings where we were told that this would not go anywhere unless it was approved by the board. Do we have to wait for the school board presentation before this information gets released to the public?
No, you can release the information as the report of the exploratory committee.
Okay.
It isn't, you know, right, Jerry? Is that the case?
I would actually lean on the other side to prudence and say that you need to bring it to the board, have them approve that information, and then send it out. I think honestly, legally, you could do either.
Yeah.
Politically, I think maybe you put it out to the board and then report out that the board saw this and go from there.
I think the question that is being raised is the work of the exploratory committee sufficient to forward it as a warrant to the voters to make an area agreement? And I think more attention
No.
needs to be paid to
My
No.
question,
That's
no.
not,
No,
My
no.
question was, are we okay to release this to the public before it goes to the board? I know full well that the
legally
board,
wise, we can, because
Okay.
it's all public information. Every bit of this data is public information.
Okay.
So legally wise, you can.
Will you have delightful conversation? Will you have the elevator pitch, just the executive summary? They were reviewed districts within so many miles offering the following programs. Our conclusions are a great deal of more programs are available. Tuition is favorable to the district. Transportation can be negotiated, and please follow the detailed findings of the reports. And
we won't talk about any tuition or anything like that, Larry. That's not our recommendation. All we were doing was presenting this information, gathering the information. It's whether or not the school board wants to.
Right, but you've already given the tuition rates for Prospect Mountain and compared them.
No. That tuition rate is what the taxpayers are paying right now per pupil. That is not what we've negotiated, because we don't negotiate. That's not up to us.
That's what these districts have paid in 2019 and 2020 to educate each child at the high school. That's what this is. It's
They do
not
represent, at least they
right. It's
represent
not the base tuition rate.
the trend line, shall we say.
No, it's actual numbers, Larry, that the taxpayers are paying to educate their pupils from their towns. The Milton taxpayers in 2020 paid just shy of $23,000 per pupil to educate them. That is a given fact. That is not saying that's what we would be charging somebody to come to Milton to be educated.
Just like it's not saying that Prospect Mountain would charge us $17,943 to send a Milton student there, because I don't believe that they would.
No, they need students.
So, and that is another consideration in this whole topic, is that a lot of schools, their enrollments are going down. So they're looking for students. So it couldn't be a better time for all this to take place, because they're looking for students in all the schools.
Can I throw one more question out? I'm sorry, I'm the new guy, so forgive me.
Sure.
What happens in 3 to 5 years when the contract, whichever one you would do if this passes, if the receiving district says, you know what, it's hard times, we need some budget, influx, we're going to up your tuition by 20%. You have no vote on the board. So what would you do?
So what would you do? You would make sure that you would put something into the contract that would not happen. And that's why we do not have the authority to negotiate a contract, but any contract that you would negotiate, just from my limited knowledge, you would make sure that that would not happen. And when you're looking at the different school districts, you see that some of them want 10 years. Mm-hmm. So at the end of 10 years, you can negotiate again. You could say, okay, 10 years, what's going to happen?
Okay, in fairness, I think only one was longer than 7 years. But regardless, if that comes up, you have no school, you have no teachers, what would you do?
So Barrington, that is the situation that they're in. I mean, not currently in, but right, they renew every 5 years with the 3 surrounding schools.
Yep.
And none of those schools, from my understanding, would take 100%. So they technically could be in the same boat. But from my understanding, they put something in the contract, even when the contract is up, it can only go up a certain percentage. And something else that they talked about was the need for these schools to have those incoming funds. So like, for example, they talked about for Barrington students, it cost them $14,000 to go to Co-Brown, which is like one of the best schools in the state, right? Like that's such a reasonable price. And they've been going there for, I think it's like, oh, it's more than 5 years. They already renewed it, right? So like they had something in their previous contract to indicate, okay, if we do renew, it's not going to go up to 25%, right? So I think maybe some like legal counsel was involved in the verbiage of that contract, but I knew the other schools are looking for those funds, so they're not going to jack it up to an expense that Milton couldn't incur, right? Because then they'd lose all that money.
Okay. I would advise you to put an escalator clause in any agreement, if it ever comes to that, where you have some control.
Yep.
Well, that's going to be up to the attorney.
Yeah, that would be on the school lawyer.
It's definitely not us. Again, we're just here to gather information and to put that information out there. We do not negotiate. We do not talk about terms. We do not talk about any of that. That is not us. We're lay people. We're not, we're not lawyers.
Right. So if the voters vote this down,
then it's down.
Yeah. I think that,
but again, it's going to be up to the school board in order for it to even go to the voters.
Right, exactly.
But I can guarantee you, if it doesn't go to the voters, if the school board doesn't make a motion to put this to the voters, it will get to the voters because there will be a right to know act and there will be a motion, to do it. So it would be in the school board's best interest for this one time, out of the last 4 times that they've gone through this, to make sure that the town gets to see the information.
Does any of the public still have any questions? Because I know we opened the floor for public comments and then we kind of got off track. So I'm just curious if there were still any of the public that had any questions for us.
I hear none. Larry Brown, one last comment for Jerry. The contract between Barrington and Dover is on the web. It can be reviewed for about 18 different controlling topics, including the rate of, I believe, 1.08% per year going up. It's illustrative for how districts work and the terms of area agreements. Thank you. I'm going to say good night. Appreciate the information. Well done. Bye bye.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, so I guess
Earl, I just wanted to make sure that I understand that we can release this information, correct?
you took the words right out of my mouth. So I was gonna clarify because it started going there. So Jerry, when you were saying for them not to release it, what did you mean?
I just wanted, it's PI, it's public information, so they can certainly do it. I think, I don't know, politically, aesthetically, you might want to run it by the board first, but you don't have to. I mean, you're a subdivision of the board. So I would say that you should report to the board and the board release it. But legally,
I mean,
I
so
agree.
one of the reasons that we might not want to go with that assessment, because I know you're new, is that we've actually had board members publicly through social media basically say, you know, that they don't care what we present, that they're just against this, period.
Yeah.
So we don't think they can be subjective because they've done this before we've even presented any of this data to anybody.
Yeah.
Besides this committee, right? And
you're totally within the rights. You can do that.
yeah. So that's just maybe one of the more reasons that we would lean toward it first, so that at least the public can see it. They can then come to the board meeting, discuss their opinions. So the board at least knows how the public feels with this data. So that maybe they'll actually take a look at it and not just go off of emotions of how they feel before even seeing what's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree. You don't have to vet it through the board. I agree with that. So if that's where you want to go, then do it. I'm fine with that.
Abby, what's
I think
your
my
thought?
last,
I think we have the board member here. Abby? Is she
I
still with
think
us?
it's either way. I think he wasn't really saying, get approval or legal things. It was just saying a timing issue that I think he was just thinking, present it to the board and then release it to the public. But I think in this case, it's really one of those 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't think it's going to matter either way, but.
Oh.
Okay. I was just trying to get consensus here. So
That was no help at all. I apologize.
That's what they were where I was too. Like, what are we doing here? Okay. Okay.
Could I chime in as a member of the public and just, I don't know,
Yeah.
give you my opinion, because I'm not afraid to do that. I would think that you would want to release this, and this is just, again, a member of the public. I would think you'd want to release this before the board meeting. And the reason why is the biggest complaint, and I spend far too much time on social media, than I should, particularly as a high school teacher. But I feel like the more information that's out there, what everybody says is nobody goes to these board meetings. Nobody, everybody's a keyboard warrior. If I see that one more time, I'm going to throw up. But I think what will happen is if people see this, it's going to stir up some questions and it's going to get people thinking. And I think that, I think it's only information that is so analytical, and you guys have done such a wonderful job with that, just putting the info out there, that info goes out to the public and people see it. Hopefully they're going to come to the meeting, they're going to ask questions, they're going to want to know more. So sorry, I often talk too much, so I'll stop, but I think putting it out there now would be better than waiting.
And I think it's already getting out there. I just have that feeling that there's going to be people that are listening to this or whatever is going to send it to friends, colleagues, acquaintances. So I think it's going to get out there. So I agree. We need to get it out there as quickly and as often as we can to make sure that people have the information.
yeah,
So what are you looking at for a board agenda item? Because the 28th is the next board. It might be kind of tight for that, but we can do it.
we should be on there. Do you mean for like length of time?
No, for all the data you have here, to share that with the board.
I think we should share all of
Well, it won't be a lot of us speaking in this forum. We each kind of have our different sections that we're pretty familiar with and present different parts of it.
Yep.
I think it should take however long it takes, because this information is so important that people need to know the information. So if it takes us, whatever time, that's the time it takes us. And through this, if people have plenty of questions, then we answer everybody's questions to the best of our ability, if I could talk. But I think however long it takes, that's what it takes, because we're dedicated to getting the information to the people that need it.
Well, Sally, my recommendation, which means nothing, but you can take it if you want it, would be to put it out there. You can send me that stuff, or Heather can.
I sent it to you.
Okay, thank you. And we can put it out on the website and then give that, we've only got like 9 days before the board meeting. Maybe wait till the next one and put it on committee, but either way, whatever you want to happen, we can make happen.
We would like it on this school board meeting.
Okay.
This
Heather,
month.
did you give him the
Nope, you're breaking up.
extracurriculars and my
I solely
did you
sent the
give Jerry,
chart.
did you also send him the extracurricular pieces?
I did
Okay.
not. I solely sent him the chart.
All
So
right.
if you want to send those to me or Jerry, feel free to. I can either forward them over. But I think you're right. Maybe their extracurriculars can also be added to like the Milton School, the page. So the
Yeah, 'cause-
information is out there.
Because it also has the PMHS sports,
Okay.
or well, the different school sports. The only one left that we have to do is Milton, and the only reason we have school is because we still have information missing.
Okay.
So I think we put out what we have.
Yep.
We're
Yeah,
a work in progress.
Yeah.
So, and then people can say, well, how come you don't have this or whatever? We just haven't gathered that information yet. We're waiting on a response. So,
yeah.
I agree. I think that the most important thing is just making sure that, yeah, people have the analytical information. I know a lot of the challenge or obstacles that we've come across is the new pride of maybe the generations that have been here longer, which I completely understand. My family grew up in the same town for forever. But at some point, I think you have to step away from that historical sense and just make sure it's right for your kids, whatever's best for your kids at the end of the day. So I think this analytical information that has no emotional sense to it is going to be really influential once we get it out there. So I think the sooner we can get it on the Milton Facebook page and the school websites and maybe some paper copies and to the school board, I think no matter what, as long as the taxpayers have the say, then that's all that matters.
So who will be speaking, or whom will be speaking at the board meeting?
I don't think we've decided that yet.
Okay.
The steering committee is going to meet and we're going to decide how we're breaking that up.
Okay.
Because just like tonight, everybody has kind of their own section of what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good presentation model.
Yep, I agree. Okay. So I'll make sure it's on the budget tomorrow when I go in. On the agenda when I go in tomorrow.
Yep. Okay.
Take it from there.
I thought you were giving us a budget. I said, woo,
Yeah.
those
I'm getting a
mailings,
budget.
those
Yeah.
mailings are coming
Whoa.
in.
Is there any money in the budget for communication?
There may be. I've only been here 9 days, 9 working days. So
Putting you to work.
give me a
Did
little.
anybody warn you were walking into this?
Actually, I was warned, and I'm like, let's do it. I'm all good. Yeah, but I can actually look. We have publication money, so maybe we can.
We would appreciate you looking into that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
will.
Okay, thank you.
And
Very
thank you
much.
for being so perceptive. I'm sure this is just so much, so we appreciate it.
I'm on sponge mode. I'm just like taking everything in right now. So it's all good.
Okay, so anything else for the good of the order? I think we're all set. We really did a succinct job here for 2 hours and had great conversation, great discussion, and all kinds of input. And so that we're all set. And anything else for the good of the order?
Will there be another meeting, full meeting of the Exploration Committee?
Yes, you folks can set that. It will be in person, and you can set it now for August. I presume it's the 19th, and the board,
I think it's the 16th. It's August 16th.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Do we want to try and see if we can get it for after the date that Prospect Mountain had wanted to have us there for dinner, in case discussion comes of that, the school board, the committee and everybody does that dinner. No.
We could, we could, we don't know. And Abigail, I know, is going to work with the school board to get a date that they can all come. Is that right,
Yeah.
Abigail?
Yes, we'll talk
Yeah.
about it at the next board meeting when we are all together. Maybe we can put our heads together and come up with dates that work for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, great.
What if it's tentative 8/16 with a possible adjustment pending the dinner date?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, I have a very loaded question.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
The actions of this exploratory have had a detrimental effect on the staffing, at least at Newt. And I've had 3 people resign and say, I can't stay here because I don't know if I'll have a job next year. What's your advice for me going forward?
I have a hard time believing that everybody is quitting due to an exploratory committee. That's my personal opinion. My opinion is if somebody is questioning whether or not they should stay as a teacher, obviously we're not going to get anything done. Nobody's going to be doing any moves, adds, or deletes for at least a good 2 years. Comes down to whether or not, number one, the school board allows it to be voted upon. Then if it's not allowed by the school board for it to be voted upon, then it has to go to Right to Know Act, and then legal warrant has to be submitted on a March 2022 ballot. So then it would get voted on then. So you're looking at 2023. So I mean, maybe 2024. So I think maybe some people are using it as an excuse, and that's entirely up to them. But I don't feel that the attrition has to do solely with this group.
Well,
And again, that's my opinion.
right. All I know is half the staff of Newt is gone. And just today I had 2 people resign saying that sentiment, that the exploratory committee was making them nervous and they couldn't risk their family's well-being, and they had openings and they left.
I think that was just an excuse for them to get out without saying, I'm leaving for a different job.
My other concern,
from what I understand in the past, because this has come up over and over again over the years, is that other people have said what Jan had said at one of our previous meetings is every time this comes up, there's some staff that resigns, and every time they've resigned, it didn't actually happen. So that is one thing to say. You also don't always know where you're going to be a year, 2 years, 4 years down the road anyways, whether or not you're going to have a job or want the job too. It just, staff turnover does come with the territory. I don't, and like Laura said, you don't know if that's true or not, but it has come up in the past from what I understand. It's every time that the nice thing about this, if we can finally get it on the ballot, is we could put it to rest and not have this conversation every 2 to 4 years and have a huge turnover every 2 to 4 years. I, for one, either way, would like to put this to rest.
I think that, and I think that if we just get it on there, have that persuasion, even if there's somebody on the school board member who's like, you know what, I really don't want this, but I validate that it is time to give the town a vote. I think that's the most important thing. And in all reality, if they're against that, it's concerning, because essentially they are representing the town. That is what they took as becoming a school member. And I think that's school board member, and that's the most important thing. In addition, if there is resistance either from teachers, from staff, from school board members, it's like, okay, well, what's the true intent there for your students, right? Like, I think that's, at the end of the day, the most important thing, right? Like, what's best for these kids? What can we truly do for them? And they're already going through 1.5 million challenges. Let's at least put them in the best possible environment that we can.
I would like to just throw out there that there's no reason to doubt any teacher who is resigning because of what they're saying they're resigning for, because there are plenty of good reasons, and I have received them all to leave the district. So if they are choosing to leave because of this committee, I would take them at their word, because there are very good other reasons to leave that they did not bring up.
So thank you for that perspective. And it's an individual choice whether people leave or they stay. And I do have sympathy, empathy for people being in this situation, because I realize that we are talking about jobs in certain cases. But the bottom line for me is, and I can tell you when I was a principal, the bottom line, the best advice I ever received from anybody was, hey, it's what's best for the kids. That's what it comes down to. What is best for the kids? So I believe that's our bottom line. What is best for the kids? And we all have to answer that in our own way. And if the town, whichever way they speak, I just want to make sure that people speak from their heart and say, this is best for the kids.
And I really think it's very important to say that this committee by no means is requesting anybody to shut a school down. Really what we want is we want to make sure that valid information and correct information is publicized to the public so the public can make a good decision based on fact. That and data that they've never seen before. And I don't want people to be afraid to have that information out there.
Hey, anything else for the good of the order? And anybody have anything else? So the next meeting then will be when do you folks decide to have it? August?
16 tentative, I guess dependent on a dinner with Alton, but as of now 8/16.
Okay, and then Abigail can work out the date with the group and then let Jerry know when that is going to be, so we could post that. Does that good?
Correct. And we're also going to be posting a meeting. We'll need it posted for the steering committee to meet. So we're going to have to do that rather quickly because we want to meet before the school board meeting.
And also to just so everyone knows that everyone knows, Sally, you do post those and you have it school and whoever, just like this one. It's in person, it's not on Zoom. So anybody that wants to come can come. It's open to the world.
Yes, yes. And we did that before and we'll do it for this meeting coming up. Yes.
Correct.
We just got to make sure somebody's there to open up the building for us.
Yeah, we know that. You called me and then we dispatched everyone in the world to it was like a fire
after we
drill.
sat for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We got in. We were persistent. That's one thing our committee is, persistent.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. I'll look forward. I'll be psyched to see everybody on the 28th. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I want to thank everybody, including the public, for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.